Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Speed Street. It feels like it has been many moons since we have talked to you folks, but that's only because we went through an Indianapolis 500. Welcome to the Indy 500 post-race show. Very, very, very special event happened over the weekend, and I'm glad we got a great episode in, last week. Kind of looking ahead, the double guest show, that was cool. But now we have obviously the winner of the Indianapolis 500 on this show. Josef Newgarden is with us. Now, I'm sure several people will not like that because you guys, there's a lot of, hey, everyone's entitled to their thoughts and opinions, and we respect what you think about it. But he is the winner, and he won it legally as well. So that has been confirmed. There's a lot of big tech process after the Indy 500 and before. So that's happened. But really thankful for Josef joining us. Very, very cool to get to talk to him. I also, I don't get to interview myself. I didn't win the race. Shout out me. Didn't win the race. In case you guys weren't aware.
You did great,
we had a great day. Thank you. No, Chase, we had a great day. Great day at the Indy 500. I want to kind of just go through this show and, just kind of explain a little bit about the race weekend, Carb Day as well, because obviously there was a lot that happened over the weekend. Carb Day, Legends Day, a lot of good vibes to talk about, but kind of want to just give you my opinion on what I saw, during the race, a couple maybe moments that you might not know about that happened. I have not watched the broadcast. I have not watched the race broadcast, so I don't know what it looked like. I don't know what people saw or didn't see. But Chase, I also want to give you, obviously you were there, you were at the Indy 500, got to meet a lot of people that are listeners to this show. Thank you to all those folks that did say that they listened to Speed Street. That was really, really cool. And I want to hear, Chase, about, I kind of want to hear from you first about like what you thought this year. What was your Indy 500 experience like this year?
Man, it was unbelievable. For one, it was my second Indy 500. Got to bring the wife and kiddo out as well, and to get to see you finish in the top 10 at the Indy 5, biggest mover of the race. So shout out to you first off, and get a round of applause. If you're in your car, if you're at your desk, your boss is watching you.
Thank you.
Just clap.
Thank you.
If your boss asks you why you're clapping, just tell him because Connor got a top 10 in the Indianapolis 500. So I just wanted to say that. But man, what a weekend. To really get to experience Carb Day for the first time was incredible. I saw they had some NASCAR guys out there. You had old Jeff Burton with Firehawk. He was shooting shirts in the stands. That was cool. My son had a blast. Wife had a blast. And I think that aside from the race, we definitely, got to meet a ton of Speed Street fans, which was awesome. So shout out to you guys. And to get to watch it, I mean, obviously you're in the car. We're up in the stands. We're watching things. We're on the straightaway. First time from the straightaway was purely electric. The pace laps are always like that moment for me where like you get the chills, right? And
yes,
to get to experience that with my kid, and then afterwards to know that for the first race of his life, he stayed glued to that thing all 200 laps. I was a proud papa. I'll put it that way.
Love that.
But yeah, man,
it's important to entertain the youth these days too. It's important to keep the attention of the youth. They have so much distractions in life right now. If we're locking in the youth to an amazing event, that's positive.
And hey, other than that, I will say that he is now, he's obviously a Connor fan. But I think he's also become a Scott Dixon fan. He bought a Scott Dixon car, so he's a little Iceman. He's got his little car. He's been the whole time the race is going on. When you guys were coming by, he was sitting by the window, just doing that every time. Just, with the car. So yeah, from a family perspective, it was incredible. Tons of great people. And just to get to experience that, to get to see you run, Josef Newgarden obviously win again. We'll get to talk with him, like you said, and rush the crowd again. So Joey two-time, all business Joe becomes Joey two-time, and I don't know, like I'm indifferent, man, because for me, and maybe it's just because I'm coming from another series, but it's really hard for me to feel any type of way, regardless of who wins that race. It's because of the event, the spectacle, what's happening. It's like the battle between Josef and Pato was just exhilarating, right? And whenever Josef crossed the line, it's like it didn't matter at that moment because everybody gave it all that they had. And I think that it's just the event as a whole really just captured me in a way to where you were happy whoever got it. It's because you saw everybody just in the stands, not an empty seat. The crowd roaring, like when it's coming down to like 2 to go. You don't feel that at a football game. You don't feel that at a baseball game unless you're probably like singing like Sweet Caroline or something. But that still doesn't hold a candle. It's just, there is genuinely nothing like it in the world, man. And so for me to have any upset feelings, and I'm not saying that it's wrong if you do, but I just could not leave there unhappy. There was just no way that could happen. And it was just a truly incredible day, incredible experience. 6 million people plus watched it. Just what more can you ask for, man? Just the greatest day in motorsports, the greatest race of all time. This is IndyCar.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those were I loved hearing that from you. I think it's important to our fans and fans of this show. That's a true raw appreciation of what just happened over the weekend. I mean, this is Chase, you're a guy that has come from the NASCAR realm and kind of has not been to as many Indy 500s as probably a lot of our listeners have been to. But to hear your appreciation for it, I think is really cool. And you're exactly right. I mean, we'll get into a little bit of that, the ratings talk. I mean, great ratings, even after a rain delay. I loved that they lifted the blackout as well after the rain delay. That is really, really great news. Obviously, I'm not sure how much that would affect a ton because if you already thought it was going to be blacked out, but then you didn't pay attention to like live updates to news or Twitter or whatever, you might not know that the blackout even got lifted. But that was really cool, I think. Maybe big rain helped us get ratings. I don't know. Big weather is out here like, conjuring up a nice little, all right, boom, there's the blackout lifted. So who knows?
It was huge.
But yeah, there was so much that I think was respectable. I want to get into a little bit more detail, obviously, about the weekend. But my overall impression, I gave a speech at the banquet last night, which I'll talk about a little bit later. It wasn't my favorite banquet speech, but we'll get into that. But so much respect for the fans, the people that were out there. I mean, I've never been a part of a rain delayed Indy 500, so that it was very new for me. Very, very like just a strange feeling. Like that morning, you're doing everything that you normally do. A couple media interviews, a couple small bits and bobs here and there. Like, yeah, do some talks. All right, I'm gonna put my suit on. All right, cool, here we go. And it's still not raining yet, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna probably plan. I did my snake pit trip. All right, cool. Normal, knock that out, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, get back. And, you're trying to be like, okay, cool. Let's, we're going to go out there soon, right? And they're like, yeah, no. I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. Like, do I need to eat now? Like, it just throws off the whole vibe. Like, I've been doing the same thing for 10 years. I don't know. It's kind of a weird, like, just a weird, like you just get into a habit of doing things around the Indy 500. Like, I don't eat a big meal before the race because like the green flag's like 12:30. You're in the car like right at lunchtime. Yeah. You eat breakfast. Like, I'm just excited to eat afterwards. But now I'm like, well, shoot, I'm starving now. Like, we got to eat. Like, it just changes up the whole vibe of everything.
And see, for me, it's not like that. Like for me, it's like that's what I'm used to. My second one. It's like, okay, well, like you don't realize how much this doesn't happen. It has literally only been rained out and had to be delayed 3 times in history. That's 108 runnings of the Indy 500. Only 3 of them have ever had to be delayed and pushed back. So that's what's insane to me.
Yeah. So it was, so it was interesting. But before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about Carb Day because I thought Carb Day was super cool as well. And I love to see the amount. It just seemed like the amount of people that were at the track every day was larger than normal. And I don't know if it's just because like I haven't been to a race all year this year. I've been to Long Beach, but that's it. I haven't raced in any races, but like the crowd at this year's 500 just on every day seemed just larger. It just seemed massive. And so I loved getting to get out there and practice at carb day. For us, we were like, we were a little bit unsure of a couple things on carb day. We didn't really perform as we were hoping to perform. We did a lot of laps, but again, because this month has been so short when it comes to track time, there's a lot of things that a one-off team we're just a little bit behind the radar on, like we're just behind the ball on, and that's no fault of the team.
Sure.
But normally you have this full week of practice where you can sort all these things out, and so we found a little bit of an issue of like, okay, cool, this is why I think we thought the car was going to be handling a certain way, and again, when we got to the race car, my engineer, my team, they made the exact right choice on what we needed to do setup wise. But that's why we practice, right? Like that's why we practiced. That's why we went out there. We did a ton of laps on carb day. The pit stop competition was electric. Well, met the Gin Blossoms. Got to see Gin Blossoms concert. That was sweet. Got to meet George Thorogood. Still to this day, which is so funny because we met the fellow who did it last year. Who was the main carb day performer last year? I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to do some research real quick. Did you see any of the carb? Did you see any of the carb day concert?
So no, I didn't do any concerts. So we were mainly kind of like in that around the garage area for most of the day, right? Like so we were kind of standing up there. We're watching they had the pit crew competition. You had practice out there. We were just kind of trying to go around, and I was really mainly like more focused on like showing the kiddo around like the whole area. But
Brian Adams
jealous.
Is who I was trying to think of. Brian Adams was last year,
man,
and
what
Brian
a guy.
Adams. Me and my girlfriend went up to meet Brian Adams last year, and like as soon as these old rock stars see my girlfriend, whatever it is, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna talk to this lady right here," which is hilarious. That's old rock and roll, baby. That's old rock and roll coming out immediately. Yeah. Very funny, shake my hand, but they're like, oh, saying something,
a lady,
just nice, but like kind of creepy to my lady. Yeah, yes. Very nice people though, very nice people. But
it
80s. Is funny how old rock stars still there. George Thorogood, like he's coming out like, oh, hello,
how was he, by the way? Was he? Did you get to like talk with him long?
Just not a long time, but he was cool. A nice guy. Said some very nice things to Amy and my mother.
He's a badass.
And Doug. And so, yeah, just an old school rock star guy. But it is funny how those guys still got the vibes. You know what I mean? They got the vibes.
Never goes away.
But yeah, carb day. I mean, just cool to see everyone there. And I'm just so impressed with how the Speedway does it, how they handle it. I was super pumped. And then, moving into Legends Day too, the Saturday. I thought the Saturday at the parade was amazing. Got to see so many folks at the parade. The autograph session in the morning too, had to apply layers of sunscreen because we were starting towards the back. So my row was closest to the sun.
Oh man.
It seemed like, me and Pietro Fittipaldi and Christian Lundgaard were in the same row. They were good row mates when it comes to, signing stuff. A lot of Brazilian folks that were out there. Shout out to the Brazilians that were wanting Pietro's autograph. And shout out to Catherine Legg for giving me sunscreen. So that was really helpful.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, cool to see as well at the public drivers meeting. This is kind of something I was into. Like they had a lot of like influencer-y folk there, but a lot of folks that were in the automotive space that were brought there to kind of hype up the race. A couple different folk. You met Tony Breidinger, who obviously she's an ARCA driver, but she's got 2.5 million followers.
Shout out to Tony.
Instagram, so
she was cool, Tony. By the way. She had a duck. Yeah. She had a rubber duck, and she was like, "Do you care if I put this duck in the picture?" And I'm like, go for it. Like, who knows? Like she seems like the adventurous type of person, carries around.
People don't understand how important it is to have like these folks with all these followers that come in. I know people will still not understand marketing, but like. That is what if people are so well responded to and all that stuff. And there was a couple others from the racing space, folks that are just highly followed at the drivers' meeting. A couple celebrities, a lot of people were there. It was great to see the DeFerrin family there as well. The DeFerrins were there honoring Gilles DeFerrin. That was fantastic.
Zach and Cody. Zach and Cody guy.
Yeah. Well, they were there. Yeah, they were there for the race. I think I saw them a little bit on Saturday, but just kind of a cool deal. And Saturday, we also got to do something that was kind of wild. Now, the parade was great vibes. We threw out some stickers. I threw some stickers at people. I didn't know that throwing stickers can be wild. If you throw them at one angle, they go a million miles. If you throw them at the wrong angle, they go about 1 foot. Yeah. So I threw a sticker at a kid, and I feel bad because it looked like it was about to chop his head off. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I got to throw these lighter. And then the next sticker I threw, this kid had to run into the middle of the street. So it was dangerous. Throwing stickers is dangerous.
Are you telling me that, like, you were able to, like, angle it perfectly to where it was like frisbee, like a ninja star?
Yeah, I think it was a ninja star. I threw ninja stars at kids, but they were stickers. Yeah. So be careful throwing stickers at kids in the street. That's not, you got to watch out for that.
That's tough, yeah.
But also Saturday got to kind of hear a little bit of like they do a rehearsal on Saturday. For those that haven't really been to the track on Saturday, but they do a rehearsal of kind of everything, like the anthem, all the songs, the flyover, 2 different flyovers. And I got to go to the roof of the pagoda for both flyovers.
Whoa.
And obviously, I'm very lucky to do that because of my stepfather, Doug Bowles. We get to go up there as the family. We got to hang with the Thunderbird folk, which, again, they were a sponsor on my car years ago, the U.S. Air Force. Yeah, so that was really cool. But, man, the flyover, when you see a flyover, the Thunderbirds do the flyover, I mean, if that doesn't make you feel like the most American, person ever, it was just the coolest thing ever. So getting to see that was, like, really made my Saturday. That was pretty sweet. But yeah, just in general, the vibes on the weekend were great. And let's just get right into the race. I mean, I could talk for it seems like 4 hours. Like, I guess that's why I have a podcast.
2-part podcast?
No. We're not gonna. There's not a ton that
lap by lap, dude.
Yeah. But it was fun, man. It was a good lead up. The only annoying part began like when everyone started like talking about, oh, you think it's going to rain? It's like, well, guys, I'm not a weatherman. Like, I don't know. Like, we're just going to show up. And then when we show up, if we're racing, we're racing. And if we got to wait, then we got to wait. And it was kind of a shame too, because I really thought the race was going to sell out, like ticket wise, like full sell out. But you have to know that a lot of those like walk up tickets that are kind of sold last second were probably, not going to happen if the weather's predicted to be bad. So
yeah,
that was a shame, but still a packed house. Yeah, we get there Sunday morning, and let's just kind of dive right into it. After the podcast, I'm sure I'm going to think, and I'm going to be like, dang, I probably missed out on a few things. But but the race is awesome. Like, let's just get right to it. Yeah. We get in there, as I kind of explained earlier, the vibes are odd. Didn't really know what to do food-wise. Okay, it starts raining. All right, well, we got to clear the people from the stands. And that's a shame because, like, I had some people there, too, for the first time. Lily Singh, she was there for us. She was my teammate at the NBA All-Star Game, and she was, she was experiencing her first 500. I was like, dang, I really wish, this is the normal, like, pomp and circumstance, like all the cool stuff. But I was just hoping that, man, when we come out of this rain delay, we got to get, like, I hope all the ceremonies still happen. I hope we do everything. And I'm looking at the weather with my engineer, too, and we're like, we are going to get this in. It just depends on, what time in the afternoon can we start. And so are we unlucky with the fact that it rained? Yeah, we are. But we are lucky with when it stopped and the fact that we could get the track dry pretty efficiently and then get through all the opening ceremonies pretty much in sunlight. Like, it was beautiful when the flyover was happening. The weather was great. It wasn't too hot. So yeah, bad luck for not starting on time, but great for us to at least get in all the feel good stuff. Like, I love the opening ceremony. The driver intro sadly was a little bit different. That was a bit of a shame. We had to do it kind of, they stuffed us into a green room that wasn't our normal green room. And that was kind of weird because, like, the drivers, like, we were packed in this tiny little green room. And we were like, oh boy, this is not good. Marco Andretti was like, if I get elbowed one more time, I am going to punch someone in the face.
Dude, that's what I'm just wondering. Like, how are y'all all not like, just that room has to be so intense because you're about to get on the track, dude. What is that like?
Yeah, it was weird. It was definitely weird because, like, normally it's tight always in the green room because the green room is usually just below where we were. We were kind of like right behind the victory podium on the second level of the pagoda. And there's a bunch of cameras. There's camera teams everywhere. 100 Days to Indy, all the different people. But military members, obviously, for for the opening ceremonies and stuff like that. And then we get fed outside onto the victory podium to do the intros. And it's just we don't have the big group photo afterwards, which is kind of a shame because that was usually really, really cool. But it did mean that we got to go to the bathroom easier after driver intros. Normally that's the big thing. You got to rush to the toilets. Yeah. And I was first to the toilet since
shout out, dude.
I was on the shout out to the toilet run. We were first there because we started so far back on the grid. So
nice.
That was good.
Worked out.
But yeah, and then once we got out to the grid, it did feel kind of normal. I was like, we look both ends of the track, and you're like, man, there's a ton of people here. This is really sweet, and that was just awesome to see. What was your impression of the vibes on the grid? What was your impression of the vibes, the opening ceremony? I thought the national anthem was one of the best national anthems that I've seen in a long time at the Speedway. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. So I mean, being out there again, I just kind of go back to those moments were mainly like because I had like experienced that a little bit in 2021. Like I wanted to make sure that the kiddo could get to do that. Philip Phillips, I know, performed.
Yeah.
He
America the Beautiful.
Yeah. He performed America the Beautiful, but my kid grew up liking him, so that was cool for him. Back home in Indiana, though, always electric.
Yeah.
To hear the crowd go with it. The singing, it's the most consistent thing I feel like, and it's the most unique part of all of those ceremonies. Because in most sports, obviously you have the anthem and things like that, but like that one song specifically was cool. It's definitely, it's not just like your every Sunday, grid walk. It's you feel the importance of it on another level. The way that you're standing. Not directly so much on pit road, but like on the track. And so for me, I guess that alone just it sets it in a category of its own. And it's just all when the jets come over and then there's another batch of jets. It's like you forget about it and then bam.
The second flyover, which was absurd. Yeah.
You're just taking the AirPods out and then bam, your eardrums just slapped right in there. So that's there's all kinds of levels of excitement. So it's just it's everything, dude. I just there's nothing really I can compare it to.
I mean, this is Speed Street honesty right here. I was full on crying on the grid. I was in tears after the national anthem. The flyover and the national anthem all happened like in perfect coinciding of planes in America and. Like that stuff gets me going inside. I love the emotional rush of like what we're about to do. We're about to go put our lives on the line and all these incredible people are here to see it. And I love what I do. I love where I live. And I love like the fact that this is just the coolest thing ever. I was in bits. I was like crying and I'm like, but I was like happy tears. I was smiling. And I was looking at Amy. I was like, man, this is sweet, but I'm like coughing and crying at the same time. And then you got to put your helmet on, and I got these like tears on my face, but that's what it makes me feel like.
And it was extra special though. So like, I mean, like, and honestly, it doesn't matter if you cry at every one of them because like, if that's the one time,
but this one was extra.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like you're in a one-off car right now. That was been the big story, right? Like let's be real with it. Like let's celebrate you for a minute, man. Like this. And I could tell from Thursday, like when I called you on Thursday when I got in, man, it's just something I could hear in your voice. I tried to give you as much room as possible because I knew where your mind's at. I could just see it. Like, it's like it's one thing talking to you one day, but like this week, I felt that energy from you in just another way that was it just transcended everything. And you being from Indiana, you being from there. You getting this shot, coming after everything that went down. It's like this you're never going to forget this. I mean, you might not ever forget any of them, but like the laps you led, man, like everything you did, so many people, like it really is, dude. It's just so cool. You touch so many people in that entire speedway, man. Like I kept telling everybody, you're the Indiana kid, man. It's like that's
it means a lot. Yeah.
Dude, it's just, it's incredible, man.
Yeah, it was a wild moment just on the grid. Just super cool. The vibes were amazing. Getting into the car, hearing Back Home Again in Indiana too. I'm actually a little sad we don't get to be outside of the car for Back Home Again in Indiana, because like it'd be such a cool thing to again experience that. But it is kind of like I still get to hear it just a little bit muffled in the car.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, getting into the race, we right out the gate. Let me tell you something that's kind of interesting. So I'm rolling around on the pace lap, and I honestly thought I had a vibration, like right out the gate. I thought as soon as we roll away, it felt like the right front tire was loose. Like one of those moments where you're like, oh, this would be really awkward if if I pitted because I thought it was loose, but it wasn't. Sometimes when you're going so slow in a car that's built to be literally doing 225 miles an hour for 3 hours long, sometimes there's a bit of movement because stuff is designed to be going faster than 70 miles an hour. So I reported on the, I was like, hey guys, like just letting you know, like I think we got a little bit of a loose wheel, maybe, and I don't think it was a loose wheel. I don't know what it was, but I'm already thinking like, oh, like, boy, this is gonna suck if this stint is, real long first stint, and we got bad vibrations right out the gate. And I don't know what that was, but we were just kind of like, hey, we're just gonna go, like we're gonna get it going, and so we're rolling around to take the green. I got two Ray Hall cars right next to me. Lundgaard on the inside, Pietro on the outside. Also, by the way, real quick, I know I'm like sliding into the vibes, but remind me to talk, Chase, a little bit about the Jeff Gordon shoe exchange, or the shoe signing.
Oh, dude,
we'll talk about that later. Maybe we'll talk.
I got a notepad over here.
Make little post-race notes, post-race discussion notes. Put the Jeff Gordon shoe signing in there too. So anyway, brief pause there. But so we're rolling to the start, and both Ray Hall cars jumped the start by a mile. Like we're the funny thing is about starting so far back that you're going green kind of like in three, like or like enter, like not entry to three, but like definitely pretty like far back on track compared to where the leaders are, because our rows are so spread out compared to a normal race start. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're doing that. And I could tell how much they jumped it because there was no one behind me. And then we had caught the row in front of us so fast. So, like, it's not like I was the one that was just sleeping. It's just like our row went, because when I saw them go, I obviously am going, but they jumped it so much that we caught the next row so fast. And they actually, because they jumped it, I got such a great run on Pietro because he had got in front of me, and then I'm getting the double, triple toe. And I immediately go to the outside because I was going to be committed to the outside from day one. I wanted to live on the outside for that first lap because we had to make up spots. We had to be aggressive. I planned on being aggressive right out the gate, even though I think we had a vibration. So I fired around the outside, get Pietro, get Tom Blomqvist, maybe another car, but at least kind of get back to like right where Christian was in front of me. So I didn't really if anything, I didn't lose any from my starting position. I just gained probably 2. And then they say yellow. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, what happened? Like, was there like a...
We were nervous as hell, dude. We were nervous.
Yeah, and so...
And
it was also a pink car that spun like with Tom Blomqvist. So there was a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But I actually asked my spotter, I was like, well, what happened? Because I couldn't see the screens or anything. And I was wondering, like, I thought I left Tom like a ton of room because I passed him on the outside. And, passing anyone on the outside of Indy, that's tough, right? And if you're down low and you got dirty air, like that's, and Tom has never raced on an oval before. So this is Tom's first time. And this suction, the air suction that you get on that first lap when all 33 cars are piling into turn one is insane.
Couldn't imagine.
It's so tough for rookies. And I feel really bad for Tom because I like Tom a lot. He's a great driver. And but it just goes to show you how difficult this race is, how difficult it is for rookies until you experience that as well. And then to see that take out Marcus Ericsson and Pietro Fittipaldi, I mean, nightmare for those guys. I mean, to the Indy 500, the entire month you lead up to it, and you're out on lap corner 1.
Yeah.
That is the worst thing ever. So I hated to see it for those guys, but definitely tried to make sure I cleared myself. And so from right there, we decide it's time to go off strategy. It's time to make a pit stop. And we were already towards the back, right? So there's only a couple cars behind you. So you know that probably those guys are going to take it, because anytime you get a yellow that early and you're towards the back, it gives you time to go off strategy.
Yeah.
It gives you a chance to get a couple more laps of fuel on people, which we did. We also took tires because we wanted to make sure that we got rid of the vibration. So when we pitted, we probably could have just done fuel. Like I noticed that Catherine Legg, when she pitted right in front of me, she was just going to do fuel. We did fuel and tires, and Catherine actually stalled in the pits when I was leaving. So thankfully we stayed ahead of her and maybe one other car, I think, as well, because they also did fuel and tires. But and then thankfully the vibration went away immediately. So I was like, oh man, all right. So I was happy that we were able to get fuel and tires to eliminate the vibration issue. We got kind of where we wanted to be, and then on that restart, it was time to go. Like, it was time to get into it. Passed a couple cars on the outside right out the gate. Used the outside of 1 and 2, 3, 4, and just kind of started moving our way forward. Got up to Yuko's cars, kind of got ahead of both of them or one of them, and then later on in that stint, definitely had a big washout moment and kind of got passed back by one other Yuko's car, and I was like, okay, cool. Well, it's time to settle in here. And eventually, we get another yellow, and now is the time where we cycle forward. Yeah. It's like, all right, lap 28 or something like that. And it's like, well, it's me and Stingray leading the field. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. The amount of times I've talked about Stingray on this podcast just circulate. Now he's circulating in front of me, and he's the leader of the Indy 500.
That had me worried, too, because you talked about it so much. And I was sitting there, and I'm like, dude, he's up there with Stingray. Like, we talked about this. We've talked about this multiple times. And it's like, and so I'm looking at my wife, and she's like it was like Manchester United had just scored a goal where we were at, obviously, when you got up there. So she's like, oh, God. I'm like, oh, is that Stingray? And she's like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with Stingray? And I'm like,
I thought he was like a lap down or something. Turns out, no, that was just raw Stingray. That was raw Bob.
Dude,
Stingray Bob.
He was running. I'm not going to lie. He was up there, dude. I mean, you guys
those Foyt cars were so fast all month long. Shout out to the Foyt Penske relationship that didn't get enough credit. But, so I was like, all right, well, we've got decent amount of fuel. I know we're off strategy already. So the goal is to probably just push as hard as we can and just see kind of how it goes. So that, that restart, Stingray kind of was doing like a little, like he tried to move to the outside, but inside, like he was doing like a mini snake, like a mini snaking down the straight, but not really. I mean, it was just kind of weird, but we got by him, and that's what we need to do. So we got by Stingray, took the lead. So I was like, shoot, here we are. We're locked in. We're early on in the race. I wish it was lap 196 instead of like 29. But yeah, I got to the lead, man. It felt so good to lead again. But I knew we were going to need some help later on. Like, I knew we were kind of off strategy. And I could tell, that thankfully we had got the issue with the tire kind of taken care of. And then, no one wants, so let me tell you why I just sat out there in the lead. No one wants to lead. So when Scott McLaughlin got behind me, he's not going to pass me. He could have passed me 100 million times if he wanted, but he doesn't want to burn the fuel. Yeah. So, so for me, since I'm on a different strategy, I could at that time just run out front, because we knew that we're not in the battle with those guys right next to it, right behind us, but eventually we would like to cycle through. So, when I pitted, we then cycled back. We started like pretty deep on the next restart. I forget how it exactly played out, but there was a restart where we kind of, or there was a time where we cycled back a little bit, and then we got the yellow, and then we cycled back to the front, and then kind of restarted, and we restarted from the lead, which was tough. Got past a couple times, because if you restart as the leader, you're always destroyed. Yeah. So kind of went back like first to fifth, and then cycled back up to second, and then that's when I started saving fuel. So I let Scott lead for a little bit, save some fuel behind him. Didn't need to make a move. Just save fuel. And then, honestly, the race, like I'm trying to go in a timeline, but there was a point in the race about lap 51, which this is what we found out just yesterday. My engineer told me, but I haven't really said much about this. I didn't say anything at the banquet, but like we had a broken left rear shock on lap 51.
Wow.
For the rest of the race. So we found that out afterwards after we do a set down on the car. We got all the information. We checked, hey, what was going on? And the left rear shock broke on lap 51. So,
dude.
And when I think about it now, I was like, man, we did start getting a lot more understeer, a lot more push. Car got a lot tighter as we went, and I thought we needed to trim. I need more front grip. That's why. So to do, I think, what we did with that issue, I'm even more proud of it now.
It's incredible.
Because that's it. Like the shocks are very, very important. And, that's no fault of anyone. Again, this is motorsport. It's hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to be perfect, man.
Fault. Things break, right? Like stuff happens all the time. We saw 2 motors blow up. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that happens, during this race. And so, as I look back now, about after lap 51, I'm like, we need to trim. Like the rear is really tied down. So we definitely we took a big trim step in the middle of the race because I thought we just weren't fast enough, right? We just needed to let that sucker run a little bit. So we trimmed out a little bit, and it was the perfect call because it made racing much, much better for us. And some of the restarts though were wild. Like when we talk about cars flying all over the place, there were some restarts where you'd find cars on your outside that you're like, yikes. And I'm like hanging on to the freaking car for dear life in some of these situations because just the dirty air, right? The dirty air is nuts. But every time I feel like we got past on a restart, we'd get them right back. Dove down the inside of Josef, ran side by side with Josef, which I talked to him a little bit about in the interview, through turn 3. And I could tell he loves to hang up there in turn 3. Like, he'll hang on the outside. I'm like, heck no, dog. Like, well, I'm not going to give up on this one.
Yeah. Got
him into 4, and we kind of kept ourselves in contention. It's easy to get swallowed up on those restarts, but you have to kind of keep yourself in contention. Santino got in front of me, and he was then saving fuel immediately, but then popped out, made that pass on him, and kind of be like, look, I'll always want to stay up front. Like, I want to stay in the right half of the field, the front half. So everything kind of seemed to be going our way. Like, there was, talking about that shock issue. I didn't know that at the time, so I'm just working with what we got. We're trimming out, we're doing things, and then my headrest starts flying away. So I'm like, we have a headrest that's locked into the car, right? So it's what we lean up against, for our helmet. Like, so we keep our neck in a certain position to make sure we can take the G load correctly from our skull for our skull. But it's also for safety, right? If you hit the wall, you bounce off, your head doesn't have a lot of room to move with this headrest because it's for safety.
Yeah.
But mine had started coming up. So the front latches had either come undone and the thing starts to come up. Now it's still in there, but it also means my head is now in a slightly different position and my helmet is kind of slightly further forward than it normally is. I did like a full probably 10 laps following Scott McLaughlin in the lead, and I'm trying to save fuel, just kind of chilling behind him. I don't really remember looking at Scott much because I was in a slap fight with my headrest. Like, I'm literally punching this thing at 220. I'm in second place in the race, and I'm in a fist fight with my headrest. Like, I'm not doing anything but punching this thing to try to get it back in.
I can only imagine how uncomfortable that's got to be, man. Like,
oh, man, not great. It was not great. But the funny thing is like, it took a while. And, it wasn't like, it wasn't in an unsafe position. It was just like, it was just weird. Like, it was causing my head to just be a little bit different. And I couldn't see my mirrors either. So, like, that wasn't awesome. But every time I slap fighted this thing down, it was getting slightly more in place. And And eventually, like, I kind of just punched it real hard under yellow because, look, eventually, if that issue continued, I was going to have to pit for safety reasons.
Yeah.
Like, IndyCar was going to have to call me in because I'm a very honest man. So I'm out here like telling them on the radio, I was like, yo, the headrest is up. Like, I gotta, like, can you guys punch this down on the pit stop? And so on one pit stop, our tear-off guy, he tried to get in there and push it down. But again, we have 7 seconds in a pit stop to try to fix an issue that all I can do is just verbally describe to them.
Yeah.
And so the headrest is up, and I'm like, please punch it right back into place. Please punch it right. And so he's like trying to push it. And then it's like, all right, we're out of the pits, and it's still the same. I'm like, shoot. So eventually, like, I had literally got to a point where I was slamming if I had an onboard camera, it would have looked hilarious because I would have looked like I was having my own little fist fight or having a psychotic mental breakdown in the car, like this, like beating myself up. I was slamming my head up against the back of the thing. And eventually, though, I think I got it into the right place because it latched, and I was like, all right, let's keep on going. So I latched that sucker with my face and my hands. I was in a fist fight with it.
While maintaining a race. While
maintaining a race. Now, again, it was definitely in position to where it was still in a safe spot, but definitely had thrown things off for a while. And that was a wild one. I appreciate the fact that they didn't make me pit because that would have been silly because honestly, it was completely fine. It was not unsafe. It was just weird for me. So we eventually punched the crap out of it, got back in. And the racing continued. We had several restarts during the race too, where I remember, I'll never forget this sight, but when Marco spun, this was kind of a psychotic restart. I had restarted actually like right behind Pato. Like this was like me, Pato, and like Renus. And we were kind of, we hadn't cycled through on strategy. Those guys were going to need to pit eventually. So I was like probably mid-pack-ish. And we're going into one. And I am like on the outside of someone, but they're also on the, like, we're 3 wide. I'm middle 3, bottom side slightly of 4 wide going into 1. And the unfortunate part about kind of staying in the middle of 3 wide when you have 2 cars that have more momentum is that they both want to close up around your front tires. So had I just continued to stay there, I would have wrecked both Renus, Pato, myself, and everyone behind.
I'm glad you didn't do that.
But I'm looking and I'm like, well, I know Pato's not going to lift. I know Renus isn't going to lift. I don't really need to be here because I was going to get those guys anyway on pit stop. So just kind of lifted a little bit, lost, only a little bit of time. But I see Marco come flying around the outside, and I'm already high. I'm already up on the middle lane, like just trying to stay in the fight. I'm a little sideways, but I see Marco, like I almost look at his eyes. He is so sideways, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he is 1,000% crashing. Like, this is definitely happening. But I'm driving on through, and I'm like, I'm hustling the thing, try not to die, and it's still not yellow. I'm like waiting for the yellow call. I'm like flat out. I get through 2, and then they're like, yellow, yellow, yellow. I'm like, okay, all right. So something must have happened because, man, Marco, like that was wild to see him try to correct that thing. I didn't see the replay of it yet, but I thought he was either going to save it or he was so high up that he was either already in the wall or what. But that was a crazy moment, all because I had chosen to go low on this restart, and Colton was laps down on the bottom lane of this restart. And I'm like, goodness gracious. It was a perfect restart for me had I not chosen the bottom lane where I found a parked Colton Herta. And I felt bad for him because his car was so good. He was having a great day until they had their issue. Yeah. And he got back out there. But it's very frustrating to have to kind of have cars that are several laps down on an important restart like that. When you're like, oh, I got a great restart. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy actually is not in the race. So I got stuck behind him. I almost wanted to like bump draft him out of the way, but it couldn't do that. And so that kind of created that whole accident with Marco, was the Colton kind of just being there on the inside and him trying to stay out of the way, but 2 guys trying to pass me at the same time. So hated to see that from Marco, but that was a wild moment because Renus actually, I think, also did make contact with Pato, but they were fine, but there was definitely smoke because I had seen smoke as I turned in. And that was like right in front of me. So I want to say it was like a Renus and Pato type, just a little coming together like wing versus tire. So again, lucky for both of those guys that they didn't happen, but unlucky for Marco. But yeah, man, there was also a point when we got a little bit later, I got back to the lead or back closer to the front, and like there was a big cloud. Like, hey, is it going to rain again? I was like, oh, do we need to get to the lead? Like, I actually thought my strategy at the time was to be in front when it was raining. Because I saw these dark clouds kind of come forward, and I was like, oh, maybe like we're on this strategy to like be leading when it rains. But it was really just because it was getting later in the afternoon. Like, it was kind of crazy how late in the afternoon it got.
Yeah, you forget that it's like, because like it doesn't get dark till like 9 o'clock in Indianapolis. Like, that's not normal for me in the South at all. And like, apparently, like, I remember talking to some people about that when we were up there, and they were just kind of looking at me like, what? Like, I'm like, that's not a thing. Like I promise it gets dark at like 6:30, 7 o'clock down here in Louisiana. So yeah, for that, you forget about it. You really do. So I'm just glad that everything got in before it got too dark. But I don't even know where the clouds were that you're talking about, but you definitely were throwing the right darts.
Oh, I promise they were up there. I promise they were up there. It looked like it was getting darker under one of the yellows. And you start obviously thinking optimistically, like, hey man, it'd be cool to like lead lap 176 and then go yellow rain. I don't know. But anyway, eventually, you know, the track, I can tell, is getting faster. Like as it cools down, the track is gripping up, and we're ripping. Like suddenly we're now like flat out in traffic, like just hauling the mail. And we get to a point where if we didn't get that last yellow, we were going to be in a very, very good position. The reason why I know that is because Scott Dixon was on the same strategy.
Yes.
So whenever you're on the right strategy of Scott Dixon,
you did.
If we didn't get that last yellow, dude, like those guys in front, like the rest of the field they were going to have to save like crazy fuel, and like we were going to be able to push hard to the end. So kind of a bad luck but good luck scenario. Like, man, if that last yellow didn't happen, we were going to be in the catbird seat, like a very, very good position.
Yeah.
However, everyone comes in for the yellow, and we're kind of then all on the same spot. Like I was a little bit more healthy on fuel than most of those guys, but everyone could kind of push to the end. But still, like we're in the top 10 on the final restart. Everyone's got one stop. We got to do it. Final restart. We all pit. Final stop. And my guys in the pits did a great job. And Scott, apparently Scott McLaughlin said he was dealing with clutch issues, because I'm coming out of the pits and Scott's the first box. I was the first box in. Scott's the last box out, but first to exit pit road. And he comes out, and I can tell he's struggling a little bit to get out. And I'm like, oh, please can I get by him? Please can I get by him? Because it was going to help me so much to carry momentum. But he got to take off the pit speed limiter like right at the perfect moment. But then he dragged back a little bit because I think he had a longer first gear than me. And the long first gear, I could accelerate a little bit, and then he was there. But I'm on the outside of the warm-up lane, which sucks. There is no grip out there. The track is flat. And so I kind of have to fall into line behind him. And both of us lost a ton of track position there, because Josef, we all pitted at the same time. So Josef, Scott, me pitted. Boom. Josef had a perfect, flawless stop. Everything was great. And he got out in the perfect spot. And so Renus had cycled in front of me because of a pit stop. I had passed him on track. We had come in about 7th. And I had passed Renus on track. I had passed Scott on track. And now I have both Scott and Renus in front of me. And so I'm like, oh, man, that was a brutal situation for us. And honestly, that kind of sealed our fate from then on. Everyone was at max push for the rest of the race. There was not going to be a ton of passing unless someone made a big mistake. I'm pushing my butt off, but I'm really trying to get the car to turn. Turn 2 was my most difficult corner because I couldn't quite get it to turn how I wanted, and the left rear shock broken. Probably that was probably why. Yeah. But I had a big washout moment, and Santino was able to get by me, which was obviously that hurt my inner soul. But Santino actually was driving a fairly sensible race. Like the guy,
you got to give it to him. You got to give it to him.
I mean, the guy didn't do it stupid to me. And look, this is going to be funny for all these people who listen to our show. But I'm walking down pit lane after the race, and Santino looks at me. He's like, "Hey, good race." I'm like, "Yeah, You know what? You too. And that was it. So a little friendly exchange.
A non-cocky rooster, dude.
A respectful exchange between Santino and I. You know, again, I'm happy his stupidity was limited on this day. I am happy that was happening.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I was never going to be able to defend from him anyway, because we had such a big washout moment out of two that he was going to pass me anyway. And unless someone made a mistake, there was nothing else that was going to happen. So I just had to kind of stay where I was. Like no one really at that point, like Renus's car was really struggling, and I really wish I could have got him because he made a mistake and Santino got him. And then we were much faster than Renus. We were much faster than Scott at the end. We were much faster than a couple of those guys, but you had to have enough momentum and speed to just make that move or take advantage of a mistake. So just a tough one. But again, cool to just let it ride all the way to the end, just pushing hard, pushing hard, pushing hard. I cannot explain to you how much all of us were that last stint. You're on the absolute limit. Like I'm seeing Scott and Renus are loose as crap in one. So you could see their cars moving. Santino was on the curb at least 2 times. I thought he was going to crash once. I'm like armfuls of oversteer out of one occasionally, and then big push. Like you're steering the car harder than you've ever steered it all month long. You're just forcing this vehicle to do everything so you can stay there or push harder.
It's the dog labs, dude. That's what it is.
The dog, yeah. You truly become a psycho, inhumane person at that point, because you're just like, you're doing everything with this vehicle that it is, it's at its absolute limit. So, at the end for us, coming home 10th was really cool. We crossed the finish line, and first of all, I'm looking. I can see obviously the leader. Thankfully, we're at the front of the field, so I'm looking at Josef and Pato go side by side through 3, and I'm like, are they going to crash? Like, maybe there's going to be something there. And then when my spotter didn't say yellow, I was like, oh, shoot, they made it through. That's kind of wild.
They were close, man. They were so close watching close, on the straightaway. Like, I know you said you haven't really got to watch the replay yet, but that battle, man, was probably...
It was awesome.
It was one of the most intense battles I've ever watched. It really was.
Yeah, it was exactly right. And now, again, I don't fault Pato for going for it. I think I would have done the same thing.
Absolutely.
If Pato had another 2 car lengths, maybe 3 car lengths of a gap, I don't know if Josef can make that move into 3, because Josef made that move late. Like, it was very late, and he had to ride up there on the high line. I think if it was 2 or 3 car lengths different, I see it as a much different scenario there for both cars. But that's the way Indy is. I mean, Pato went for it. I feel like I would have done the same thing, because if the amount of momentum sometimes you can carry when you get a good tow, you get a good run, and you stay flat through 1 and 2. I did the same thing now again, Stingray is not Josef Newgarden, but like I kind of got the same thing when I passed Stingray on the restart. Like, you get this big tow, you get a big run. He didn't actually pass me for another lap and a half because I pulled enough of a gap through 1 and 2. They didn't actually get back to my rear bumper by the time we got back to 1 on the next lap. So you kind of have to go for it. The wild thing about Pato finishing second is, like, his car did not look good. Like, Pato's car did not look good in the middle of the race. I followed him. He looked like he was struggling his butt off. And, like, I got a couple runs on him, and we're like, oh, man, like, almost could make it happen, but I hit the limiter on one of them. And it just goes to show you, though, how not only do you have to be perfect in this race, but you got to get a little luck. You got to put yourself at the right place at the right time. The one thing that I learned, and again, I look back on, I'm like, this race is so much about being at the perfect spot at the right time, getting the team to do everything that they can to position you, which my team was doing. And then, you as a driver being smart enough to put yourself in a position as well at the end. And again, I think I missed, I can point to 2 different places where, like, man, I missed 2 car lengths there. And I missed 1 spot coming out of the pits there. You miss, I shouldn't have let Alex Rossi by me easily, on one, like, right before yellow, because Rossi passed me and I thought I was going to get him right back because I was on fresh tires, but it went yellow right away. So then you're in a restart, then you're in 1 spot worse on a restart. So, there's a couple things that are just, I believe that I could have done a little bit better in a couple different scenarios, but from what we dealt with starting so far back, from the shock issue that we dealt with, from the headrest that was coming up, from all kinds of things that were going on. I think we have to be super proud. But the Pato being second is wild. Like, he had the craziest save I've ever seen in my life. That clip kind of went viral a little bit on IndyCar Twitter.
Oh yeah, where he slipped.
There was a clip of Pato's onboard where he hit that curb in turn 2 and like basically just drifted the car at 220 to the exit. I've never seen that happen in my life. There was one moment where Pablo Montoya had a similar correction, but it was like one correction. It was like he hit the curb and was like, meh, meh. Pato had like 2 full-on drifts and didn't hit the wall.
He was wrestling the wheel, dude. Like, it's insane.
That should have been a wreck. That's really incredible and impressive to have seen that. And I respect him for it. I'm trying to think of what else I want to go through. But like Kyle Kirkwood, for example, I had no idea he was 7th.
Yeah.
Kyle Kirkwood was in my motorhome after the race. I was like, "Where'd you finish?" He's like, 7th. I was like, "When did you pass me?" These are kind of all these things that happen on that, like the last cycle, right?
Yeah.
Because Kyle had overcutted, he said, and the overcut can be so powerful. I didn't even realize he made up that time. Like, so again, you have to nail everything perfectly. And if you don't, you just kind of, it's one or two things and you just become a little bit, you just miss out a couple things. So
many, like
this race is so hard.
Linear.
It's so hard.
Yeah. And that's something I'll never know. You did bring up Kyle though. And I do think it's very important to bring up Kyle Larson.
Yes.
Kyle Larson getting out there. I want to say he finished this race.
I meant Kyle Kirkwood. But Kyle Larson, yes, we should talk about him too.
So yeah, I know you said Kyle Kirkwood. That's why I was like, Kyle. I was like, because there's been a lot going on Twitter, especially over Monday. When it come to him completing, the 1100. But him being out there, I think he learned a ton. He really got to see what it means to race in an Indy 500. I know that I heard some people talk about a couple of things that he missed something on a restart, or he was talking about some of the mistakes that he was made, kind of similar to like some of what you were just talking about. But the thing is he had put out a tweet the other day that really just was it was kind of, I hated to see it. It was just basically how
I wanted to talk about this too. Yeah. Go ahead, give me your thoughts on it. The tweet that kind of came out was like he was just showing some disappointment because of and it was things that are out of his control, right? He was way too hard on himself. I saw this Kyle Larson tweet. He put something out about he's like,
yeah,
feels so responsible. It's like, my brother, you sped in pit lane, okay? Guess who did that? Leading the Indy 500, Scott Dixon.
Yeah.
Like, dude, this happened
not long ago.
Dude, this is hard. Like, what we're doing is tough. And like, I think Kyle was way too hard on himself on that tweet, because like the dude like did a great job. Never put the thing in the fence. Like, made a mistake during the race. Yeah, welcome to the club, dude. Everyone's done that. Like, this is hard. We're all like, this is hard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he was just expecting to win. Now, I don't think so. I think he respects what he was doing a lot.
For sure. It's just like when we had him on the show and talked about that,
Yeah. And the funny, I never saw Kyle Larson all day. Like, I did the entire race. It's so funny because sometimes you do an entire race and like you never see a car like one. Never saw Kyle Larson once in the race.
Wow.
Let me list a couple other people that I never saw once.
Yes.
Never saw Elio. Never even saw his car in my mirror. I didn't even see him. Never saw him once. I never saw Graham Rahal was in my mirror, but never saw him in front of me. Never saw like. It's so funny how you never even can see some people in the race, and like that's just how it goes.
Wow.
But it was kind of wild. Like Alex Rossi and I had a good battle. I think overall Kyle Larson though was way too aggressive on himself. The guy finished the race all 500 miles in. Yeah, you made a mistake, brother, but you made it through. And guess what? He's going to be all better for it next year. If he gets to do it next year, I don't know what the plans are there, because, boy, it got real awkward with the whole rain delay situation and the Charlotte thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the heck's going on there.
He chose Indy, man, and that's what pissed off people, right? But, like,
I don't know why it would make anyone angry. Like, this is the Indy 500. I'm sorry, but, like, NASCAR is great, and, like, the 600 is cool, but, like, this is the Indy 500, and a driver who is a driver who wants to be the best that he can be and wants to experience the best levels of the sport. I mean, you got to do it. I'm sorry.
He's a masterclass guy.
is the Indy 500. It's the biggest event in the world.
And he learned too, like, and I think that's where it all goes to is like, right, like he learned that this is probably way more, maybe a little more intense than he thought. I do think he will be back. And
I hope so.
I put the tweet out too, like saying, because there were a lot of people in the NASCAR media side that were talking about this, and it's like, it is a no-brainer. Like you've been preparing 2 years to make this run. This is one of the most historic runs ever. There isn't a long list of people that have done the double. And why would you want to just pack up and go to something that you have dominated previously when you have an opportunity for the most prestigious race in the world? And everyone's talking about the waiver issue right now. There have been drivers that have done far less. They had a backup driver for him. There have been drivers that done far less out there, okay, and got granted waivers. And so everyone's waiting to see what's going to happen. That news should be dropping. It's Tuesday while we're recording this, so I'm sure all that news will be out by the time you're hearing this, so we're all going to be waiting to see what happens. But I have to say, he made the right choice, and he knows he made the right choice at the end of the day. I saw he went to the banquet with you guys yesterday as well. So, I mean, he is a race car driver. He wants to do it all. I mean, this man is looking up to a guy like Mario Andretti trying to cover all the bases. So, what are you going to do?
I think if you don't think he should have saved the Indy 500, then I think you have to look at how you grasp what we as drivers,
what motorsport is,
truly want to do. Yeah, well, that first of all, but like, there is something about us and how we want to compete, which is up against the best. And like, Kyle gets to do that on the NASCAR side. Some of the best drivers in the world there, some of the best drivers in the world here. There's no debating that. There are good drivers on both sides of this, this field of play.
Absolutely.
But it's just cool. It's also great for motorsport. Like, it's not a negative. So Kyle staying for the Indy 500. Love to see that. Anyone who's really in motorsport, I think, has to understand that. And they do. Anyone that I've spoken to definitely does. I hope he gets to do it again, and I hope next year or whenever he gets to do it, all the timing works out fine, and he can do both. You know what I mean? Like, that's what happens.
More crossover, baby. That's what we're here for. We want it. I even saw where Ryan Blaney was talking about trying to petition to get with him and Scotty Mack to potentially do the double now. A double team double, maybe. I don't know.
That would be an interesting one. Yeah, that would be an interesting one. But for us, overall, Kyle was too hard on himself. But there were a lot of folks that had good days. A lot of folks that made some mistakes. I would say, as I look at the results page, you got to give credit to some of the Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan cars that like barely made the race. They finished like 13, 14, 15. Like, they were kind of all right there together in that region. Pretty cool. Good for Graham 33rd to 15th. That's great. He made up just about one spot less than me, so I got the hard charger award. No big deal. Very excited about that. Funny thing about that trophy is, though, there's the Jostin's hard charger or most improved driver you don't get to keep that trophy.
What?
Which is kind of a shame.
So that trophy you were just doing that for a video?
They let me hold a trophy, which is kind of cool. Indy 500, most improved driver, most cars passed. I'm like, I won't put this in the house. That'd be sweet. Nope, don't get to keep it.
They just ripped it back from you.
The trophy. They just take it back from me. Yeah, they let me hold the thing.
They're not staying on business, dude.
Which is kind of a shame. So I would like to somehow get a replica of that made. I think someone's. I think we can do that somehow, because I want that. Like, that'd be a cool trophy to have. I know it's not like, it doesn't mean anything other than the fact that we passed a lot of cars and had a great race, but like, so that was interesting. I want to let people know that. Super proud. Let me just, other things in this race, there's so much that goes on in my head. It's kind of hard to like put it all out there.
So much that happened, and I can only imagine from your perception.
Yeah, but I love that people enjoyed the race so much. I would say, a little bit unsure as to why Scott Dixon didn't get a penalty for blocking Ryan Hunter-Reay, my teammate. That was a wild incident. Ryan spinning at like 200 miles an hour and like doing a full 360 and correcting it. Shout out him for not making that car any worsely damaged. But that we have those rules in place for anyone to get penalized for a block like that. And when a block results in contact in an actual accident and there's no penalty, I am a little surprised by that. I will say I do believe, and I talked to Ryan about it. And I know Ryan said a lot of nice things about Scott at the banquet, and they understand each other. And Scott's a good racer, but like, I do believe that should have been a penalty. If that's not a penalty, I don't know what is. I think there's a couple other things. Josef winning. I think Penske was always going to win this race. I really do believe that. Everyone else put up a good fight, but the Penske cars were so fast. But I think the most funny part about the race, though, is that Will Power really struggled. And yes, they had a mile an hour on everyone in qualifying. Penske top 3. But what I love about this race is that even though I said a Penske was going to win this race, I think like, oh yeah, that was kind of inevitable. They all went through their trials and tribulations. Like Scott led most of that. Scott led a lot of that race. And by the end of it, like I could tell, like his car was loose. Like, yeah, his car was loose. Maybe not exactly how he wanted it. Josef dialed it in perfectly, but Will Power's car looked terrible to drive. Like I passed Will Power like twice because we had to do a bunch of like strategical things and had to come through the field a couple times. And
they had to have a bad adjustment or something.
I don't know what happened there, but his car, man, like he could never get to an apex. I felt bad but again, Pete, this can happen. Like the Indy 500 is so hard. You can miss it. Like you can miss the setup. You can miss things even after you guys they look so dominant. And that's what I love about this race. Like it gives people an opportunity. Like us, we started like almost last and boom, we're at the front. We had a good car. We knew we had a good car. We knew we had a good race car in the practice week, but we couldn't show it until we finally got that opportunity. So yeah, overall kind of crazy. Again, Linus Lundqvist, another crash. That's got to be tough for the Ganassi camp. Tough for him. Hated to see Marcus Armstrong lose an engine so early too. Felix Rosenqvist, he was a fast car all month of May, and having him crash, that's kind of crazy as well. Not a lot of multi-car accidents. Obviously, the first one was a big one. That was a big one.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was like just cars making mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, or people making mistakes. It just goes to show you how hard these cars are to drive. Like, you had good drivers just flat out making mistakes, crashing. And that's, that's what era we're in right now of this sport. So kind of a wild deal. Overall, Chase, after your kind of race impressions, I know we talked about the battle for the lead, the win. We had great ratings. Let's talk about our reaction rate. I mean,
yeah.
The peak was 6.1 million or something like that, but it was like
Final
5.3 million average. Like that's really good. Like that's what I was hoping for. We needed a boost. Love to see that ratings boost for us. Thank you to all those folks that watched. But like out of those 5.3 million people, can we get 1 million of you to watch Detroit?
Yes.
Like that's what we need. Like we need these people to know that like, hey, these same drivers, a lot of the same drivers, sadly not me. I go back to my couch now. I get to watch from Peacock or NBC. I get to be unemployed again. But like overall, great for the sport. Great weekend to shine for IndyCar.
I just want to say I had so many DMs from a lot of the guys that came over from the Garage Guy days and the NASCAR world just telling me like, dude, I did not realize how intense it was. And I'm like, welcome. Stick around. I know there's some road coming up. Ovals will be here. We've got Worldwide Technology Raceway, Milwaukee Mile, and then the championship's going to be at Nashville Superspeedway. Check out, and I tell everyone, check out these road course races though, because it's not like what you're seeing in NASCAR. It's not like what you see in F1. It really is the best road course racing product that there is. And I know that's my opinion. I know everybody has one, but I'm just saying if we had 5 million kind of across the board with the 6 million spike, 1 million you can watch these races for the rest of the season. That's all I'm going to say. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your boss that's looking over you in the cubicle right now, tell them watch IndyCar.
Isn't it just fascinating though? Like, and I know that people listening to this show, are pretty. They're into the sport, right? This is not like talk radio where you're just kind of out there in the world and no idea who's listening. But like,
not NPR.
We know there's a lot of good race fans, and it's. Imagine how we think, like, when you see there was 6 million people watching this race, like, That's pretty freaking sweet.
It's incredible.
But then you see, like, we had like 375,000 people or something watch Long Beach. And you're like, how is that even possible? This is why it's such a battle for us in our minds, because Indy 500 had the hype, right?
Yeah.
Josef Newgarden wins on the Pat McAfee show. Scott McLaughlin was on the pole on the Pat McAfee show.
Yep.
It had the hype. Boom. I saw it on the internet way more often. I'm doing ESPN programs on Saturday morning with Ryan McGee, with Marty Smith and Ryan McGee.
I saw Ryan, by the way. He adores it, man. Adores you, adores the show.
Great dude.
Great guys, bro.
And so it's just like the Indy 500 has so much power, but I wish, again, like, I don't know the answer to getting our other races more power, but like, it is possible, because the Indy 500, I mean, just saw so many people. If we could just get 1.5 million of those 6 million people to watch every race, you know what I mean? We would be in so much more of a powerful position.
Well, think about that emotion.
Is this the NASCAR bump? I don't know. Like, is it the NASCAR, like, hey, you had a lot of people. I got a couple of tweets that like, hey, we only watched because Kyle Larson's in there. It's like, okay, but like, did you enjoy it? Like, because Kyle Larson didn't do anything at the end. So like, did we enjoy seeing IndyCar regulars battling for the win? Because that happens every weekend almost. So I hope it translates. I do hope we can gain some. I hope there were some Detroit ads this week. I hope we fired out there like, boom, hype. Let's go. Boom. We're right in Detroit.
Yeah, but but I want to go back to what you're saying. We only watched because Kyle Larson was in there. Okay. That is fans of a driver. That's a personality.
Yes.
That's a person. This is a man that is racing NASCAR. He's stopping. He's in a helicopter flying over a short track. He's like, let's stop there. Like, he's out there. He's putting himself in all these areas. I've never known Kyle to like turn away like from a fan being around. Like, just, he loves racing, and he doesn't have to do anything extra, because it's like, you can look at the man, you can tell when he talks about it, the way he talks about it, calm, cool, and collected. The more that every one of the great dudes that I know and that you know in IndyCar, the more that passion is carried throughout the week in Detroit, all the road course races, all of the other ovals. If we just take 50% of that emotion and feeling that you guys have for the Indy 500 and put that into every weekend that we're on the track, and put that into social media, put that into, your appearances, whatever you're doing, I'm telling you, it's slow growth, but it will be there. I just truly believe in the future of it, man.
Yeah.
Feels like the energy's stronger than it ever has been.
No, I agree. And I'm super pumped to see that. And I, real quick before we get to like, I want to talk about the banquet a little bit, have a little fun at the banquet, but really proud of the way that our team did. Chevrolet, Polka Dot. I was really happy with all the Polka Dot folks. You got to meet a lot of the Polka Dot folks
great
as well
guys
that were there.
And girls, yeah.
A lot of great folks from the Polka Dot community were there supporting us. I hate that I can't go back to work, again, to go battle, to battle it out with my friends at the front there. I love racing with those guys, Scott and Joseph and Pato and Alex. And those are a lot of the guys that we spent a lot of that race around. And I do believe that, I haven't raced in, it's over 6 months, and we show up and we race like we did. I'm very proud of it. I believe I deserve, to be in this series more often. I do. I don't like to ever talk about myself. I'm pretty much just self-deprecating all the time, because it's just, people laugh. But like, show up and we're in the top 10. We're leading the race. We're, and again, strategically, that's on the team to get us up there, but we stay there and we take advantage of it. I do my job. The team does their job. We execute. Dry Ryan Bowl Racing with Cusick Motorsports, all those guys, everyone, the pit stops, amazing, all that stuff. So,
Actions,
to have to go back to watching, this is really annoying for me. But I do hope that, it got me so motivated, and I felt like I was having fun again. but it's really hard, and it hurts to have to go back to, maybe my next IndyCar race isn't until the next Indy 500, which is like, it's really sad. But I hope we can do more. I hope we can get something going. Polka Dot, everyone there loved it. If we can put together a bigger program and see what happens. But just super thankful to everyone on our team. Great people to work with. I felt like I was part of the Dennis Reinbold Racing family. Amazing employees on that team. And again, people that, want to win, but also realize like that, hey, you know what? If something happened, they're like, my engineer, Jeff, he's like, hey, man, I'm sorry about that. And I was like, look, man, hey, I'm sorry I made a mistake. It was a very honest group of people. There wasn't anyone trying to throw blame like a situation I've been at in the past. Like, well, it's not our problem. It must be the driver. And I'm like, well, no. So it was just nice to be in an environment where we all supported each other. When I was saying things on the radio about like, hey, how do I fix this headret? Like all this, it's good communication. It was great to be in that environment.
Have support.
I appreciate all the fans that were there as well. The people that made me feel great again about being an IndyCar driver. That was really cool. So yeah, just wanted to say a quick shout out to all the folks that that helped us and that were a part of it. And yeah. Did you watch the banquet? Did you get to see any of the banquet clips?
I didn't get to watch any of the banquet.
You were on your way home, though, probably.
I was on the road. So they flew up and we all drove back yesterday. But before you get to the banquet, I just want to say actions, man. Like they always speak louder than words. Your actions did that. So remember that.
Thank you. I mean, that's I also did find out, this is a fun fact real quick before we get to the banquet. My stepdad, Doug Bowles, told me that I guess I'm in the top 100. There's been over 800 drivers that have competed at the Indy 500. I guess I'm in the top 100 of lap leaders.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but
it means exactly that.
I guess I've led a lot of laps at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So,
cool. Be proud of that, brother.
Hang the banner. We're in the top 100 of lap leaders at the Indy 500. So,
love it.
Pretty cool. It's kind of crazy to kind of get to the end of the month here, move out of everything on the track and go to the banquet. But the banquet was a great time. Enjoyed it a lot. I think I was sitting at a table with Catherine Legg and Ryan Hunter-Reay, my teammate. So, Catherine, as soon as she spoke, obviously she had an issue, so she spoke early and then left. So then, and then Ryan, he was not far after her, and then he left. So I'm basically sitting at a table by myself the entire night. I had two of my friends from the Polka Dot community. Chris, he was there, and so there were about four of us at this table for 10 or 12, which is kind of hilarious. But as some drivers, as they speak, they leave because they can't. But thankfully, I get to go out later in the program. Now, I will say there were not many people who I found very entertaining. I wish we had a little bit more honesty, a little bit more fun with it. My highlights, I would say, and this is going to sound funny, but I got to give young Mr. Stingray Robb a bit of credit. Now, he had a couple funny one-liners. I don't know if he prepared these ahead of time or if he's got a quick wit. But I even wrote in my podcast notes, I was like, hey, shout out Stingray for a good speech. Stingray had a good banquet speech. So, okay. The only people that I literally found funny or entertaining were Stingray and Scott McLaughlin. Now, Scott McLaughlin, allegedly, no one knows this for a fact, but there might have been some beverage, we heard on the Pat McAfee show that he erases beers. Of course. Maybe there was some erasing going on. I don't know. Maybe there was some erasing.
That's just Scotty Mag, dude. Yeah.
That's just Scotty Mag. Now, again, we don't know that. Yeah, Scott was probably, had a nice month.
Yeah. He's happy.
But Scott had some funny one-liners. He called his, hot pregnant wife. It's kind of funny. Just a couple good one lines, but yeah, we had a table was empty. I was upset with my speech. First of all, I want to apologize to people. I thanked Chevrolet. I thanked some people. I wanted one more question to be hey, just real quick, Roger Penske, Polka Dot, everyone from the community. But I got in the team. Thank you, Dennis Reinbold and Chevrolet, which was good. I talked about what we got into in the rain delay, which is kind of wild. The rain delay, real quick, I guess I can tell that story since I talked about it in the banquet, but we went back to the bus during the rain delay, not to kind of get out of tune here. But this is kind of like 4 minutes of fun, but I'm just going to keep talking about stuff because I have a podcast, so we can do whatever we want.
Let's go.
But during the rain delay, we got in there and we're kind of all taking shelter. Me, my buddy Bryce, Jeff Gordon was there, but not NASCAR Jeff Gordon. I have a friend whose name is actually also Jeff Gordon, and he was in my bus chilling out. And then my girlfriend Amy was there frying some chicken nuggets, which smelled great.
Incredible.
And then comedian John Christ, who I would like to have on the show at some point. You met him.
Love
John,
that
great
guy, man.
Very funny.
We hit it off, dude.
John had fallen asleep on my couch. So John was asleep on my couch. Bryce, my buddy, I had basically said during the banquet, if you want to know more about my banquet speech, that my buddy Bryce had kind of like hacked into the radio network and like we could listen to the NBC production radios. We're not hacking anything. Basically like an advanced scan. Like we basically, like he had his computer out. He set up a metal antenna.
He pulled out the JSON, dude.
I don't know what a JSON is still, but you keep saying that, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, dude.
But he pulled out this metal antenna and it's connected it to a computer. And he's like, oh, here's how like radio frequencies work. And I'm like, well, that's kind of wild. And we found like the NBC radio and we're just kind of listening in. And it was kind of cool. Like I learned about frequencies. I was like, is this where you find aliens? Like, is this where we detect those little signals?
Yeah.
And it looked kind of wild. So we kind of scanned the air for airwaves and we found the NBC scanners or whatever. And we could listen to the production team a little bit.
What they doing?
So yeah, that was kind of cool. I learned about technology. And John Chris took a nap. Shout out John. Yeah, that was kind of funny. So my speech, I got a little bit in there. People seem to enjoy it, but I wasn't as happy with it. I wish I could have got a couple more good stories in there. But really nothing happened that was like story worthy during May. Like there were no pranks. There was no kind of craziness. So I kind of just had to go for it and see what happened. And you know what? If you enjoyed it, I appreciate you guys. Real quick, Josef won over $4 million.
He did.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
The purse was what, 18 mil?
Now, again, that they said the purse was the largest it's ever been or whatever, which is true. But you got to remember the back-to-back Indy 500 champion gets an extra $400,000, which that is a big additive to the purse.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at my purse, it is not that much. But I did technically, and now I remember we did an episode a lot about the prize money, which I still have to figure out how it works. But I think the hard charger gets a bonus, but like my prize money compared to like Callum Ilot's was like $560,000 or something. I finished just in front of him and I'm like $159,000. That's because you only get $100,000 to make the race if you're not a full-time car or a leader circle car. So that's kind of how that works. But we'll see. I mean, I was in the money, in the top 10 is in the money. So that's great.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
What are you going to buy?
But I don't know. I don't make. I'm not a full-time employee, so I have to save all my money probably because I need to like be respectful.
Yeah. Investment season.
Yeah. So anyway, the banquet was interesting. Josef gave a great speech. I thought again, anyone who gets up to speak for Penske, like Kyle Moyer and Josef Newgarden, all those guys, very like business. It's only business.
All business show.
Thank the sponsors. There's no fun to be had up there. Just thank the sponsors, thank the crew guys, thank the people. And you know what? I respect that. I wish there was a little bit more,
shenanigans,
joke aroundiness, or maybe some lightheartedness. But again, this is professional motor racing, so I get it. But yeah, the banquet was a nice time, and that's kind of how we close out the month of May. I mean, that's about what we got. I mean, I don't know what else you got, Chase. Is there anything else you want to say before we get to the winner, Josef Newgarden?
Man, I just want to say, just shout out to all the great fans that were there. Shout out to all the people that keep it packed out. That was me practicing like my business speech. Thank you.
Shout out to the fans.
And then also, I did see a video where people were running on top of porta potties during the rain out.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, a couple great clips from the rain delay.
Yeah.
That oval race that people got into in the paddock, they had four dudes like in a sprint race around like a beacon or a pole in the middle of the track. That was cool during the rain delay. Shout out to our fans.
Yes.
And the porta potty video was funny too.
Yes.
Shout out to the porta potty people.
Cheers.
All right. Well, before we get to Josef, I'm just going to go through my little notes page. But my voice also hurts because I've been talking and shouting. We went out the night after the race too. Me, Christian Lundgaard, Marcus Armstrong, and Spencer Pigot was there as well. Even David Malukas. Shout out David Malukas.
Yeah.
We had David Malukas out on the streets with us a little bit after the race. Good to see him. David Malukas had some energy. You were there too, Chase. You saw it.
We rescheduled our
David
dance-off, actually. So our rivalry continues.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Had a couple nice cold beverages, maybe some sparkling seltzers, some beverages of sorts. Had a nice time dancing and jamming with the people.
It was good vibes.
And it was good to see. Had some good energy. Christian Lundgaard, great dude. We didn't have dinner after the race till like 11 p.m. Like it was such a weird late night. Traffic was wild leaving the track too. So those are just kind of fun facts that we mentioned. And rain. It was wild. All right. Well, with that, appreciate you guys listening to all that. We're gonna get to the winner. We are thankful to the NTT IndyCar Series for letting us interview Josef. He's on a wild media tour right now. And again, comment section for this is going to be wild, I'm sure. But Josef Newgarden is your winner, the first back-to-back winner in about 20 years. Josef Newgarden. Well, back to my day job. Here we go. We have a fantastic interview right here with the Indy 500 champion, Josef Newgarden. Honestly, I was going to do an introduction, but really everyone knows who you are. Two-time Indy 500 champion. I literally just saw your parents at the racetrack like 20 minutes ago. They're out there loading up your bus. Josef Newgarden is here / in New York City. I don't know where he is. Josef, congratulations. Thank you so much for being here. How you doing, man?
Hey, you too, Connor. Congrats to you. You had a great race. I know not the ultimate results. That you know how Indy is. This is, it's the toughest race in the planet. But it was a great day for a lot of people, including yourself. And what a race! Like honestly, we
want to talk about it too. We got to get into it.
I mean, we feel pretty good about it, as you can imagine. But it was I was blown away about how everybody talked about the race. That it was just a really good show and one of the best probably Indy 500s that we've had in many, many years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I want to I just watched a lot of you on the Pat McAfee show, which was great. So I don't want to I don't want to repeat a lot of things, but I think on this show we get probably deeper into the realness of the race. Now, I thankfully I got to actually understand what was going on out there a little bit. I didn't get to watch the race yet, so I don't know how it looked broadcast wise, but I want to talk first off about what you thought. Because I have not been in a rain delay Indy 500, right? So this is kind of a wild deal conditions wise. I want to talk about how your team looks at the conditions compared to a noon start, right? It's going to be later now. Now we're racing. We finished the race, dude. It's 7:30. Talk a little bit to the fans about what conditions wise you guys looked at, and you're like, shoot, do we need to trim out here for the race? What are we thinking? What did you guys kind of plan going into it with the time change, first of all?
Yeah, it's a great question, to get really scientific on this. I mean, we like science.
Let's go.
Science guys.
We were looking at other things other than just temp. The temp was favorable, specifically the track temp, but the barometric pressure was, maybe I'm not even saying that right, but just the
barometric pressure, I believe. Barometric pressure. Yeah, we learned that from Al Roker. Yeah.
There you go, yeah. I mean, that makes a huge effect too, so we're kind of looking at everything, trying to understand how we want to game this out. Our engineers did a good job. I think at the end of the day, we had fast cars in all conditions, which made a really big, difference to our month. How it goes, it just makes everything easier. And so the extra speed that our team brought really made the challenge, I think, less tricky. But, everybody was looking at this saying, when are we projected to actually run? And I think when you looked at it, at least in the morning, I didn't think we were going to run till Monday. I really thought we were going to get washed out. And, the fact that we had the big storm roll through and then all of a sudden it kind of dissipated after it, rained down for an hour and a half, was a bit of a surprise. So, I would just say this. We already had our plan. We didn't really change it much. Our plan with our car config was pretty flexible for a lot of conditions. So we just sort of waited out to see where it was going to play out. And it wasn't a big deal either way it went.
So let's talk about when all of a sudden you saw like me and Stingray up at the front. First of all, wild to see Stingray up there. Shout out for him circulating a bit. But I like when you guys immediately, you're starting the race. Okay, cool. Penske's got a mile an hour on the field. You guys locked out the front row, but it's exciting, but it's also like you get to that fuel saving point where like no one wants to lead. But when you're trying not to lead, probably you want to show up late, but then you start getting a few of us others up there. Are you starting to worry like, okay, like I need to stay right where I am? Because I don't remember seeing you until like a little bit later on. Like when I first got up there, it was Scott, but like, were you guys kind of just chilling? Like, was it kind of a chill phase, or did you fall back a little bit further than you expected at the beginning, or no?
The beginning was pretty smooth. Like the first 100 laps, we were sitting third, fourth, basically the whole time, just kind of hanging out in a lot of respects. And then when we got into that second half, and we were interacting more at that point, it was a little up and down. We kind of went to the front at one point, and then I tried to drop back, and then I thought I dropped back too far. I went to 8th on that final restart, which was I think around 155. And then it just turned into a sprint to the finish after that final restart, essentially. So we were always in the bubble, I think, of the top grouping, but it was really tricky to understand, where do you need to be at what time? And I think we got that really right the first 100 laps, and we got it right in the second 100, but there was points where I was a little concerned. Okay, maybe we're not right place, right time. But fortunately, it self-corrected in a lot of ways, and then we were. The good thing was we were in the right place, right time for that final sequence, which, sort of decided everything for the finish.
Did I make you mad when I passed you back on the inside of turn 3? Did I upset? Because I didn't want to fall back either. I was like, no. I'm not. We ain't going back too far here.
I'm going to be
that
honest.
Was game out, by the way. I respected what we had going on there. I mean, that was all right.
You stuffed
Battle
it.
Royale.
I can't fault you at all. That's what you have to do at this race. Like it's every man for himself. And exactly to your point, like no one wants to fall back. You want to be in the right position. So, there's always a lot of late moves, and you got to take a little bit of calculated risk. There's give and take. I stuff it on the inside of people like that too. And I'm hoping I get a little bit of give. And, in that moment too, I have to concede. I'm not just going to wreck with you. And it's not like it was a bad move. Your move was fine. It just, that's the style of racing that we have at Indy now. And man, it was really on display for the second half of the race. Like it was just full on. Everybody was going for it, which is what made it cool. There wasn't a lot of cautions on the back end of the race, and it was just sort of flat out racing.
Yeah, I was super happy there was no caution with like 10 to go. Like I was glad that we could just pound it out. That last stint was just like, let's just let it rip, like full throttle. That was cool. Can you tell us, did you guys trim out at any point in the race? I know a lot of us, like we trimmed out about halfway through. I was like, okay, we need speed. The conditions were getting like far too easy, like driving what? Did you guys trim out for that last couple stint? Were you guys, all right, let's peel that down, force out, and let her eat?
Yeah, we trimmed out slightly.
Okay.
It was I think it was the second to last pit stop. Where we peeled a little bit off, and we actually. And
were you feeling comfortable enough? I like to tell people like, hey, we know, all of us as drivers, we kind of know that everyone's going to look at those last little couple stints and be like, we need as much speed as we can get out of this thing. But you guys were comfortable. You're like, hey, or were you like, this might be risky, but you kind of know you have to do it?
At the time, it felt super comfy. I mean, just to the conditions like we spoke about, it was really friendly conditions, and it was only getting better. So I thought I was similar to you. I thought we needed a little bit more speed for the finish. The tough thing about it was when we made that adjustment, we didn't get the balance exactly as we wanted it. And I sort of regretted it because it coincided. We made that adjustment and it coincided with me slipping further back. So I went from sitting third or fourth in line to like 8th or 10th. And I thought, oh no, we did this at the wrong time. I really second guessed it. I actually wanted to put it all back in on the final stop. And then it just kind of came to us again. The track was cooling even more. I was happy with the car. I said, don't worry about the rear wing. Maybe we'll just add a little bit of balance. So we ended up doing that. And then it just got the track kept rapidly cooling on the final stint.
Yeah.
And
so much grip.
We were picking up grip like crazy, and I was just picking up more front grip than anything. I was so loose at the end. I think everybody was to some degree.
So was Scott, dude. Scott, I was watching Scott on that last stint, and his rear was like, I could see it moving. And I was like, oh man, you guys must have dialed that in a little bit better than he did.
Yeah, I was maxed out on my tools at the finish. Like I didn't have anything left to adjust the car. And, you know, a lot of us were living on that edge to the finish line. But it was cool. You could, you know, the fact that we didn't have a wreck in that final part and everybody was driving as hard as they were, it's just, you don't always get that. I mean, normally something goes sideways and it didn't on this one. You know, I think everybody deserves a lot of, you know, praise and respect for the way it turned out.
I have so many more questions because there are moments in the race too where thankfully I did get to actually spend time around you. So it was kind of cool, but I want to let Chase jump in because Chase was also there. And he saw what was going on, and I'm sure he's got some things for you, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a wild time, Joseph, and I want to say congratulations on being All Business Joe, now also Joey Two-Time. So congrats. Aside from that, you went back into the stands. That's kind of been the big thing everyone's talking about, and I want to know if you do it again, not only are you going to just be the only guy in history that's ever done it, but do you think we should have like the crowd rush you on the track?
What do they call this? There's some events that do this, right?
Like a rush, like a field rush or something like that. Rush the field.
Rush the field.
Yeah, it's like what's it called? The track invasion or something they call it.
Well,
we let everybody on. That would be nuts. I think things would go sideways very quickly if we did.
That would go very sideways. Yeah.
Very much. Very much. We just need one section. I think one section that'll be suitable. But I just wanted to say huge congrats. It's tough. It's tough, and you really see it. And when you're there, like I said, this is my second 500. It's just watching you and Pato battle it out to the end. It just goes to show just how much of a warrior and champion you have to be to wrestle that bear all the way down the track. So just huge. And then the jacket that you got, I saw a picture with you wearing this jacket. Do you have the jacket?
It is
here.
Yeah. Boom. There it is. So you and I we got to talk. I need a replica. You know, we need to get some. I got to get my closet. I got to get my swag right. But that's huge. That was Kyle Juszczyk's wife. She put those together, correct?
Yeah, super cool one-off jacket. I mean, there was a lot of great things that happened at this event specifically this year. Just feels like the Indy 500 is elevating every single season. And, you know, just to speak to your point too, like I really mean this. I think, man, I really think anyone in the top 10 there, those last 50 laps could have won that race. Like it could have gone so many different ways and everyone was driving at a really high level. So there was a lot of good cars, a lot of good drivers. And I think that's why it was such a good show. And, you know, the crowd, I couldn't believe that everybody was there and stayed. I mean, I partly believed that. I said to someone, I was like, if we run on Monday, I guarantee you every single person still shows back up. Like, that's the way Indy seems to be. Everyone, you know, we live and die by this event, which is so great. So it was a cool day all around.
I want to talk a little bit about a couple of the restarts. I think the way the yellows spaced out, I don't know if there were less marbles this year on the outside. And with the harder tire, it seemed like, because like at the beginning, again, I said this to you at the banquet, but I started obviously on the north side of town in Noblesville. I was so far back, but I was in there and I was like, I saw what you did last year outside of turn 3. Boom, here we go. Let's let it rip. But it seemed like everyone could use that outside on the restarts. And there was one restart where I was in the middle and I thought I was high, and then you were outside of me and then going around me. And I was like, okay, and something's going on here. The track's got a lot of grip up top. Did you feel like maybe with this tire there were a little bit less marbles and maybe there was a bit more usage of that outside lane?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. It's probably a combination of the both, like you said. Impossible to fully know, but you know, we had enough yellows and enough sweeping all the way through the first half of the race. And really the track doesn't get, it doesn't deteriorate where you get too much marbles until, you know, probably 100 laps of a lot of green running. And that was different this year. We kept cleaning it constantly. So I don't think it ever accumulated. and possibly this new tire also just marbled less, like you said. It was wild. Like you could almost, it was like it was a 2-lane racetrack in a lot of ways. I mean, no one was that brave to like work it under like full flat out conditions, but I almost think
I don't recommend that either. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought though. Like I think you could have probably made some of that work if people really wanted to. Still some, you saw some people wrecking when they were up there too, but I think you're right. It was way friendlier than normal. And that's why there was a lot of outside passes specifically on the restarts. And it was nice. It was, that's the secret though. You got to have multiple lanes. That's what makes the racing so good. It's why Iowa works so well. So, whatever we can do to figure that out more so. We always talk about it, but 2 lanes just makes the show so crazy.
Yeah, I still found it a little bit like it was definitely tough. Once you got like 5 or 6 cars back, it was still, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more movement, but again, you had to be perfect, right? If someone had a big washout, you had one of those big push moments, someone was right there to take advantage of it. And there were definitely cars struggling at the end with a little bit loose in one. Cars were loose in one, and you had to make sure they could survive through 2. But I could talk about that all day, but I want to get into a couple more things. I want to talk about the vibes, right? I'm hearing, like, obviously there's been a lot of the Team Penske land in the last few weeks, right? And I mentioned at the banquet too, comment sections are out here. They're wild right now. The internet's still absurd, but I still feel like there was a lot of Joe New love. Like there are a lot of people out here loving Josef Newgarden, but the internet can say all kinds of terrible things. But I still thought like the vibes were great for you when you won. A lot of happy people. There were people freaking out like, yeah. Like, did you feel like, okay, yeah, you guys went through some crap, right? Hey, we went through the forests and it was aggressive and it was not great. But boy, we're out here 2-time Indy 500 champion. So did you feel the vibes were great still for you guys and the energy was very high around what you did there?
Yeah, I do. I think in most ways, people at Indianapolis are there because of the event and they support, just a great show. And, they're supporting all the teams basically for all the effort that's going in. So like 98% of people, it felt like, classic Indiana, classic Indianapolis 500 and a lot of support. There was like the 2% where, they didn't like us and
I also have a wild story too. We did a Chevy appearance like right behind, like right after each other. And I don't know if you heard this, but like I'm leaving and you're like going by on a golf cart, some guy's like shouting, cheater! Like this guy really angry at me. And he looks at me, he's like, you're not a cheater, Connor. I was like, whoa, hey, that's wild what just happened here. Like, let's just maybe cool it down for a second. But that was kind of wild. Like you have to deal with that stuff. And like, I know it's not fun to talk about, but like, boy, it's got to be wild to hear that for a little bit, but then be like, you know what? Guess what? Back-to-back Indy 500 champion. I get to drink the milk twice. That's got to feel good. I mean, personally, that's got to feel like, hey, you know what? We're out here and we're able to still deliver no matter what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, to your point exactly, there was a couple individuals that seemed just unhinged. Like they were
wild out there in the streets. Yeah.
They were dead set on like displaying what they wanted to display, and they are the loudest individuals.
That's sports, baby.
Crazy, but no, we had a great month. It was great atmosphere, just as you spoke about, and we were. I mean, this sounds silly and simple, cheesy, whatever you want to call it, but we just had a lot of fun this month. We enjoyed going to work, like we all do. It's a very fun job to have. It's a fun opportunity to be there. And I felt like that's what we focused on. We were all rallying together as a team, and we enjoyed the moment. It's more enjoyable when you see the positivity of your work. Like we had super fast cars, which we've been working on for the last 4 years to try and bring that type of speed. And so to really see it, come to the front now it made it easier for us to enjoy the moment together because we know what we went through to get here. And it was all worth it. At the end of the day, we're there to race. We focused on racing, and I think we had achieved our objective.
I love that. Chase, one more for Josef here before we let him go into happiness land to the rest of the day.
Yeah, man, look, I know you got to get out of here, but I just want to say, again, shout out to you. You put the scooter gang on your back. You did it again. I'm ready to see what you do the rest of the season, and appreciate you being on Speed Street, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the show. Connor, amazing work. Like I said, I do mean this. I think a lot of people could have won this race, including you, and that was very cool to see. So, yeah,
it was fun to be up there. Thank you, man. No, it was great to be up there and racing with you guys. I truly enjoy like racing with you and Scott and those guys up there. It makes it more enjoyable for me. Like it was definitely hard. You know, we got a good strategery, but it's nice racing with you guys. And I would love to be doing that more often, but you know what? It is what it is. So good job to you guys, man. And I went up to your crew afterwards. I like your crew chief guy that was speaking last night at the banquet. Great dude. What's his name? Greg or something? Yeah. So great to see. Like you guys are great people. I enjoyed that. So congrats. You've now got enough pace cars to take up a whole garage. I don't know what's going to happen, but do you have enough garage space for the amount of vehicles that you now own?
I don't. I need to. You know, I'm in an interesting position. I bought a 2020 C8 Corvette when they first came out, and I have to get rid of that now, I think. So he's a good product.
Like 78 Corvettes now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all
That's
good.
Tough. All right. Well, hey, thank you, dude. Thanks for being on Speed Street. We appreciate you a lot. Have a great time today. Love to see you on the Pat McAfee Show. Hope to see you on everything else. And yeah, we'll catch you later. Thank you.
All right. Love you guys. See you.
Well, we appreciate Josef Newgarden on that one. Very cool to talk to him. It was, he's on a media tour, so he's got a lot to do. I feel like I could talk with him a lot more. Got to spend a lot of time racing with him in the race, which is a lot of fun. Appreciated him being honest with us there. Again, you can feel how you want to feel still. We love that. We love the energy of both the hatred of that organization. Love that. Love the passion for it. And I'm not on either side either. I wanted to beat the heck out of him myself, but I didn't. And neither did anyone else. So we had the opportunity. Pato had the opportunity. Other people had the opportunity. But you know what? Josef is a very good driver. And Team Penske, a very good organization, despite what you think about it. So yeah. It is what it is. Appreciate Josef. Real quick, before we get to the... Chase, what did you think? Good chat with Josef. I think that went well.
I mean, I really do still think that they should maybe prepare a section in case he happens to be the first driver to ever go, pull a three-peat.
A track raid.
Track raid. I mean, it would be kind of tight. No, but just shout out to him, man. I mean, they played the cards right. They threw the darts at the right time. And I mean, he's just goes to show you right there, like, do be driving, man. And also to do be driving. Also to Kyle Juszczyk's wife making jackets. Got to find a way to get that cool. jacket. He said his wife's trying to get it from him.
It's a 101.
Right. I know, and I have to get I might have to buy a fake.
Yeah. There's got to be some sort of fake somewhere. I would assume so. Or some sort of replica. A replica. That would be nice.
Replica.
So I think. Before we move on to the random Indy 500 driver of the week, the post Indy 500 show random Indy 500 driver of the week, we got to mention a little Dirty Mo news. Little Dirty Mo, the Denny Hamlin bracket challenge is back for the second year. I participated in it myself. I thought that was really cool. So the Denny Hamlin bracket challenge, shout out Denny. I hope he watched the Indy 500. Maybe he was proud of me. I don't know. Probably not. The tournament stretches over the course of 5 NASCAR Cup Series races in June. Beginning on Sunday, June 2nd at Gateway and ends June 30th at Nashville. So that's pretty cool. So just go check it out. It's dirtymomedia.com/bracket challenge. That's how you can enter it. Honestly, I enjoyed it last year. I was a part of it. So I know this is an IndyCar show, but we're in the Dirty Mo family, and they support us. We support them. So that's pretty cool. There's some prizes and stuff. It'll be pretty cool. Arctic Outdoors, RTIC. I assume that's pronounced Arctic Outdoors. They're providing prizes. So, I mean, heck, I like prizes. I might sign up for some prizes. So yeah, there's a quick little Dirty Mo shout out. All right, Chase, I asked my girlfriend to do the picking of the year this time. We went to the here. Hang on. I got to introduce the segment because I got to remember that we have great theme music and a great YouTube video. So here is the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
Greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. We'll make up the field.
And here we go. We got the 1964 Indy 500. The 1964 Indy 500. I found a good one this week. We've picked from this group before. AJ Foyt led 146 of the 200 laps of this race. AJ Foyt, dominant victory. And I went with our random driver with the P11 place finisher. And I'm fairly sure we have not used this driver before. But P11 is Art Malone. Art Malone finished 11th. Art Malone, interesting guy, I found out. Apparently, Art Malone also is an American football player. So, like, we had to make sure, like, on Wikipedia, it's like for the American football running back, Art Malone. Yeah. This is where you have to go. So that was kind of funny. Art Malone, American race car driver, was successful in both drag racing and American open wheel racing, which that's kind of wild. Yeah. He was primarily known for being a drag racer. So 1963 AHRA Top Fuel World Champion. That's kind of wild. Dude
was taking it straight, dude.
Yeah, I did not know this at all. He set a standard 1320 speed record of 183.6 miles an hour in 1959. That's kind of wild. He's in the AHRA, not NHRA, unless it's a different association. Again, I'm not a drag racing guy.
Maybe before the NHRA's time.
Maybe he was an AHRA. He's in the AHRA Hall of Fame. He was the first to attain 180 miles per hour at Daytona International Speedway. That's kind of wild. 2 Indy 500s to Art Malone's name, 63 and 64. He drove cars owned by Andy Granatelli, that's a very famous name in the IndyCar world, the IndyCar sport. We know Andy Granatelli. But very cool. That's wild. Art Malone's best finish in Indy was 1964, which we just talked about. Started 30th, finished 11th. Kind of wild, but his accident and death was caused by injuries in an airboat accident in the early 2010s. So not that long ago, but I didn't know.
Florida airboats?
I don't know. I have to know more about the airboats that poor Art Malone succumbed to injuries. In 2013, he died in 2013. R.I.P. Art Malone, but man, airboat guy, airboat accident. That's very sad.
Dude, that's like, Bobby Boucher's mom, airboats, dude. That's like crazy. Down in the bayou. That's like stuff they do down here.
That's true, yeah.
I'm telling you, dude, that's crazy. Like I said, R.I.P. You don't ever know it. But if he's in an airboat, he might have been around like alligators and stuff, dude.
Yeah. R.I.P. Art Malone in the airboat. That's wild. So, man, I tell you what, race car drivers are adrenaline junkies, so we get that. Yes. So anyway, we appreciate you folks for listening. This will conclude our Indy 500 post-race show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope the Speed Freak podcast is something that you will enjoy for the rest of the year. Guess what? We have a whole IndyCar season that we will be covering from here on out. I would love to race in more races. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're going to be talking about them. We're going to be watching them. We're going to be locked in. I'm 1 for 1 on top 10s this year, so we're gonna go ahead and lock that one out. That's all. We live and die in the top 10. That's it. We have 1 for 1 so far. So 1 for 1. Pretty happy about that. Until next time, we appreciate all you guys. Be a friend and tell a friend about the show. Maybe.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, Chase, being at the race. And all of you folks for saying hi and asking for stickers. We got to get more stickers made. I got to talk to Mike Davis about that. Let's get more Speed Street stickers. But thank you so much, folks. Thank you again. And we'll see you next week when we will probably get to we will get to talk to the winner of the Detroit Grand Prix. So thank you guys. And appreciate everyone's support. We did the Indy 500. And hopefully we get to do it again next year. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.